Good afternoon, everyone, or potentially good morning if you are on something other than Eastern time, I guess. I guess West Coast, you're still barely morning, West Coast Mountain Time. Anyway, appreciate that introduction, Brian, and very excited to see everyone here again, the people who have returned, and looks like we got some new faces here as well. So again, welcome to the Tight 20. Part of the reason for this, the name of this webinar, the Tight 20, is we really feel like an hour is far too long and there's way too much time wasted in these other webinars. So we'll jump right to this. Let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and share a screen and we'll get this started. Give me 1 second, guys. Let's see. So email marketing. Can you guys see the screen that I'm sharing currently?
Scott, we don't have you just yet.
Okay, that's all right. Bear with me, we'll get there. Hang on 1 second. Little technical difficulty here, but I think we've got this now. How are we looking?
You are good to go, sir.
All right, I appreciate it. Okay, so big question, and then we get this all the time. Is email marketing still a viable method of marketing? And that's a great question. Here's the answer. Yes. Yes, it is. Email marketing is always viable. It's in fact, these days, it may even be a more effective method of marketing than it ever has been. Here's one perfect example of that in the B2C space. When you're doing business to consumer marketing, think about how people use email these days. If you're a general consumer, essentially marketing is about the only types of emails that you get. One of maybe 3 types of emails you get, but it's not cluttering, your space isn't cluttered up with personal emails anymore. If you're a younger person, you probably don't remember this. If you're a person who's a little older like me and remembers the beginnings of email, most emails in the early days were just missives between friends, but you don't really do that anymore. People actually communicate in a million different ways. And so email really has been relegated to mostly sort of official or marketing messaging. So in that way, it's actually a little less crowded in that space than it used to be. And remember that people consume messaging in different ways. Email is effective. Some people really like to get emails. Text messaging is an effective way. You know, some people like to get texts. Some people don't. Snail mail, still effective. You know, send something to somebody with a stamp on it. All these things are effective to different people. So people do consume messages in different ways. Even if you're not an email person, don't think that you speak for everyone. That was under the different strokes for different folks. Sorry, I forgot to get that bullet up there. But the next one is email isn't going anywhere either. If you think about this too, email addresses are unique identifiers. It is pretty much everyone has one, and they're still required to sign up for practically anything. And people don't even think about giving their email anymore. So it still is a very powerful way and it's a ubiquitous way to get messaging out. Here's some email marketing stats you might not know of in case you need to be sold on this a little bit. Email ROI is exceptional. $42 returned for every $1 spent in email marketing. That is amazing. I'll take it all day long. It's just a simple and easy way to get messages out and inexpensive, obviously. Average email open rate, 19.8%. 1 in 5 of your emails is going to get opened. Now, that's across all industries, and some industries may be a little bit different, but that's pretty doggone good. I mean, are 1 in 5 people going to see your ad on Google? Probably not. So it's just really, again, effective in getting in front of eyeballs. The average click-through rate on an email, 11.3%. So about 1 in 9 people, once they've opened your email, are going to click through to your website or a link that you have on there. And that sort of engagement is kind of hard to come by. Those are really solid numbers. More than 8 out of 10 people will open a welcome email. And that's terrific. How better to get a really cool message across to somebody than to welcome them to whatever they've signed up for, whether it's your newsletter or they've created an account on your website. Really just terrific open rates there and a terrific opportunity to engage people. So next thing I want to talk about a little bit here is building your email list. Probably actually we'll go off script a little bit from what Brian mentioned, because there are a lot of different types of email messages that you can lean on to get engagement from your clients or to build to nurture potential new clients. And I think we're fairly familiar with what those messages are overall. I think in our second part of this, we'll go a little more in depth into the ways that you can set up email campaigns and the types of messages you can send. But real quickly, everybody knows there's that welcome email, thank you for signing up email. There's the thank you for your purchase email. There's the you requested this free thing email. There's your newsletter with just general information. There's your special offer email. Again, there's so many different kinds, and we can really go into detail about those later. But we've all kind of received, I think, probably at least many of each. So the thing we want to get into here is building your email list, which is that is an active task that you have to really, if you want to have a good email list, if you really want to get the most out of it, then you have to think about what can we do to actually increase the size of our email list or get people to sign up. Now, this first bullet point kind of might seem a little bit basic. Start with your existing customers. But the reason I bring this up is I had a very successful client who had been in business for over 75 years. They had a very high potential for recurring business from their clients, and they did not get their clients' email addresses. And I never understood it. I explained to them, the value of this. Hey, let's do this. And they're like, oh yeah, we just kind of don't. I guess we'll have to start asking. And that was kind of the attitude toward it. But particularly if you have that opportunity for recurring revenue from your existing customer base, you really have to get it. By the way, your existing customers generally have the highest revenue potential, unless you're selling a service or product that people only do, once, which is very rare. Getting that email, those customers are going to be one of your highest potentials for building revenue. And also, if you're doing a pretty good job with your customer service, then your customers will not mind at all giving you their email. So a couple of good reasons to really focus on the existing customers. Another thing to do is to offer something of value. Now, if you're trying to get email addresses from folks who are not already your customers, the value offer is a very simple one. And again, we've all seen it. But it's something to think about for your business, and it can work different ways for different types of businesses. So that's why we're not, opting for one particular one over another. But a couple of examples are you can offer a coupon. A lot of e-tailers offer coupons. Your first purchase is 15% off, or free shipping on your first purchase, or something like that. Offer an ebook. That's a great thing if you have a white paper, an ebook, or something that, again, has some valuable information. Most people don't mind trading that email, their email for that, knowing that they're going to be on somebody's list. Free estimate, if you offer free estimates for your services or goods, that's another way to get to get an email. And again, these things have become so common. These asks have become so common. And of course, you could just do a pop-up and say, hey, would you like to join our email list? But these sorts of asks have become so common, and people are they're very comfortable with giving that email, because they also know they can generally unsubscribe fairly easily too. So we really, but if you can offer something in exchange for it, it feels like a fair trade to people. And it's a pretty easy thing to do. The opt-in with purchase is another great one, and that's maybe the easiest one if you sell something on your site. If you have an e-commerce site, it's pretty easy to get them to sign up for an account, or to just have a checkbox that opts them in for future marketing emails. Again, pretty easy, pretty standard. People are pretty comfortable with that. The next thing we want to talk about here is choosing an email service. Now, this is an interesting one. There's so many email services out there that you can really go with, and it's hard to pick any one specific one. The quick Google search will give you, kind of. I mean, here's a great list right here. PC Mag. This is the best email marketing software. If you guys want to write this down or go to this URL. PC Mag is obviously a reputable site, so we certainly value their opinions on things. But some of the ones that they mention are some, again, if you've done any sort of email marketing at all in the past, I mean, they hit a lot of the big names, including ones like MailChimp, Constant Contact, HubSpot, and those are just a few. A couple of things that you really want to think about when you're choosing an email service is how many emails do you plan to send, and how large is your list? A lot of these services will base pricing on those two things, like how big the list is, again, or how many emails you're really sending out. So you can have a list of, say, 500 people and send out 2 emails a month, and that's 1,000 emails. Or you can send out 4, and that's 2,000 emails. So they may charge you by the number of emails or the size of your list, or some combination. None of those are really, set in stone. Another thing to really think about, and again, we'll go into this more in detail later, but if you have some ideas or have some knowledge of email marketing, you want to think about how elaborate your campaigns will be. And by that, I mean, what kinds of emails are you going to send out? When are you going to be sending them out? How are you going to be segmenting your audience? Again, these are some things we can talk about in part 2 of this, but there are ways to segment your audience so that there's seeing different types of emails at different times. And another thing to think about, obviously, with all of this and with any marketing in general, is the more targeted you can get your message to a specific segment of your audience, the more likely they are to engage or to buy your services. So with more elaborate types of campaigns, sort of when you have trees of if this, then that type of scenarios, if they've performed this action on your website, we'd like to send them this email, et cetera, et cetera. You may need some more feature-rich applications. But I will say this, we've used a lot of different ones in the past and still do use multiple ones for different clients. MailChimp has become one of the easiest and most straightforward ones to use if you're trying to design and get emails out on your own. It's pretty simple. The interface is great. And we don't get paid for this, by the way. There's no we're not an affiliate or anything for MailChimp. We just like their service. Again, pretty easy to get around, pretty straightforward. They have a free tier, and beyond the free tier, it's actually fairly reasonably priced. HubSpot also has a free tier that you can get involved with them as well. But take a look around. There are a lot of opportunities and a lot of options out there for different types of email services. So do a little research. And here, there's a quick word of caution. And again, this is something that a lot of people, maybe you don't know about email marketing, but you have to take some care in who you're sending to and how you're sending your emails. One of the biggest challenges with email is to make sure that your email gets delivered and you don't have people marking your email as spam. If that happens enough, then your domain, your business's email domain can get blacklisted, meaning spam filters will automatically send your email or emails from your business's domain to spam folders. And that is not something you want. Obviously, that's people are just, they're not going to see your emails then. And so you have to be very careful with things like this. People always have the option within whatever email they have, email service they have, to mark something as spam. So that's a thing you really want to avoid. And again, those statistics really, they really do have a bearing on even whether or not an email service will continue to allow you to use their services. If you get enough of your emails marked as spam, any one of those folks, MailChimp, Constant Contact, HubSpot, or whoever, will kick you off. The reason for that is that it tends to be a black mark against them and their servers. And the worst thing that can happen to one of those guys is to have their servers blacklisted, which means then they can't deliver email for any of their clients. So regardless of who you choose, they're generally going to be pretty tight on things that you're allowed to do and you're not allowed to do. But you just have to be cognizant of this. And again, we can go into a little more detail later. Which leads us to this great question here, and we've had this happen. Had this question a lot of times over the years. Should you buy a list for marketing? The answer is almost 100% of the time, no. And it's for a couple of reasons. Again, it's actually technically illegal to send unsolicited spam and unsolicited messages to folks. So that's problematic. But if you buy a list, the chances that you're going to get that your email is going to get marked as spam by these people who have no prior relationship with you is much higher. And that means, again, you're more likely to get blacklisted or you're more likely to get kicked off of an email service. And again, that's not a thing that you want. So it generally is an expensive way to buy a list that really isn't going to be that great because a lot of these folks haven't heard from you. We actually had one client bought a list of something like, I want to say 60,000 email addresses from a trade show that they attended without asking us. And they spent several $1,000s on this. And in the end, we really got almost nothing out of it. There's some ways to clean those email addresses, things like that, but we highly recommend that you don't buy a list anyway. Not only, again, is it higher potential for spam, but most of these service providers will not allow you to upload large lists like that. So keep those things in mind. So this one actually, because so many of the topics within email marketing deserve a little bit longer exploration, this one actually looks like we're going to run right about 20 minutes on, and we're going to save some of these other things about types of emails to send out, types of campaigns to set up, which ones are most effective. We're going to save that for the next time. So I'd like to just say that's what we have for today, and I'd love to hear any questions that you guys have. Just submit them via chat, and let us know what we can do to help you understand this a little bit better.
Scott, we had a couple questions, and like Scott said, guys, if you have any questions, please send them in. Scott, we did get a couple questions earlier in the week that were sent to us. A couple of these you've kind of gone over already, but I'd like to kind of rehash very quickly. The first one that came to us earlier in the week was, is there a way to avoid your emails going straight to junk?
That's a great question. Not in all cases. One of the great things is that spam filters have gotten a lot better over the years. But so a lot of times, if you don't have a history of being spammy, then you're probably okay. There are some words that are generally you can avoid. Um, you know, free is not usually in the subject line is usually not a great indicator. Also, things like high uh, image to text content ratio, that can cause problems. So if there are a lot of really big images but not very many words in an email, that can be that can cause some issues as well. Hang on one second. I'm gonna see if we can get out of here. And there are hang on, just trying to get I have another little technical difficulty here, guys. Sorry about that. There are some tools out there as well. Some of them, some free tools too, that you can run your subject lines through, or you can have actually look at your emails, and we'll go into those in the future as well. That's a great question because we really need to update some of our tool lists on things. But you can have these tools look at your emails and give you a score on whether or not they'll be whether the odds are that they'll be rejected via a spam filter. And actually some email services do that as well. So I hope that answers that.
I think so. No, I think so. And I know there's a lot there. So the chat room is getting busy. We have a couple more questions rolling in here, Scott. Next question is from Angie, and she'd like to know, what are your thoughts about, and this is actually a very good question, what are your thoughts about embedded video in emails?
Never really had any success with it. Honestly, the best way to probably do it that I've found is to put an image of the video with what appears to be a play button on it, and allow people to click that and then drive them to your website where they can actually see that video, to a page where they can see that video. And that accomplishes two things. Again, it keeps it. Essentially, it increases your engagement. It increases people actually going to your website, which is really what you want them to do a lot of the time. I mean, of course, you want them to pick up the phone and call you sometimes as well. But it was something like that. Again, it drives them to your site where they're more likely to get engaged with you anyway. So that's generally the recommendation that I have for video and email.
Perfect. Another great question. I like this question a lot. Excited to hear your answer, Scott. Michelle wants to know, can I get email addresses from social media?
Ooh, that's a good one. You can have, and I'm thinking really of Facebook, for example. There are things that you can require or request of people to sign up for things on your business webpage or your business page on social media. They don't generally just share those email addresses. But again, if people are engaged with you on social media, that's another great place where you can request that they submit an email address for you to reach out to them. And again, a lot of times your options aren't always as full on social media, so it certainly doesn't hurt to try to drive those folks to your website from there as well, where you have more options as far as things of value you can exchange for their email, or ways that you can ask for their email pop-ups and things like that. So you can ask for it that way, but you're not going to be able to just scrape email, if that's sort of part of the question.
Yep. No, I think I think that was a great answer. Last question for you, Scott. And I think you touched on this a little bit, but are images good in emails, or do they make the email go to spam?
They don't by themselves make them go to spam. Again, it's more of a text to image ratio that can trigger a spam filter, and it doesn't mean it's going to do it every time. But you have to also understand that images in emails, while I highly recommend them in all emails, some email providers like Outlook, for example, by default, I think it blocks most images, and you have to say, oh, show these images. So there's a chance that those images won't show. I think someone mentioned in the comments too about adding GIFs. Yes, Catherine, adding a few second GIF embedded into a video, into an email. And that again, that can be I won't say problematic, but it can be challenging with some emails that will only show a static image anyway. Again, Outlook is one of those that even if you have images turned on, that it can sometimes just show a static image rather than that actual animated GIF. So these are all things to keep in mind. And so, to have the most success with your email campaigns, we certainly recommend testing them. And there are some other tools that will allow you to see what emails look like with different email clients. I usually test them on several different emails of my own before we send anything out, or we get generally a good idea of what things are going to look like. But yeah, I'll make a note to make sure we get all of these tools listed for the next one, for the part 2 of this webinar, and we can then kind of go down those and see if we can help you guys make sure that you have emails that have the best chance of being delivered and the best chance of being open.
Perfect. Scott, thank you so much for all of those questions. I think they were all answered, and it looks like that's all we have for you today.
All right, great. Well, listen, I just want to say I appreciate it, everyone who's come out and all your returning visitors and everybody. We love doing this for you guys, and it should be about 3 weeks, and we'll run part 2 of this. I don't know how many parts we'll have eventually of this email. Sometimes we get some ideas as we go along and decide we have to expand it. So we'll definitely have a part 2 in about 3 weeks. And until then, best of luck with all of your marketing efforts. Have a great day.